the way the world is now, being 71,
Yes.
I used to feel maybe 20 years ago that this country was going through a mental health crisis.
Yes.
Well, now it's 20 years later.
Yeah.
And it's off the charts. The mental illness won,
Yeah.
and the rest of us lost.
Yes. I completely agree.
You do?
Completely. In fact, so my background is I worked in a psychiatric hospital for like 30 years. And we used to actually help people all the time. It was really quite exciting. Treatment worked and we could do things for people and they got better. Now, nothing's available. There aren't any psychiatrists. You're not allowed to help everyone. They go sleep on the sidewalk. That's the help now.
Yes,
and people go do all the drugs they want, whenever they want, and they steal to support their habit. And they're leading their best life. Who are you to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, 7 people a day dying on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all my patients. I know how to treat them. I could easily do it. Be not a problem. We could restore them to some kind of meaningful, engaged life. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to. That's just the extreme stuff. That's just the homeless stuff. Then on top of that, we have mass formation. That's the rest of us are completely out of our minds with the mob action and the hysterias that have been going on, whether it's Trump or COVID or whatever. Some massive hysteria is always underway now.
It's endless hysteria.
It's endless. And
endless trauma.
Well, so I'd be curious in your insight into this. So to me, when I started working in a psychiatric hospital, there was a lot of different kinds of personality disorders. You see all kinds of things. By the late 80s, everything shifted over to borderline. And then in the 90s,
I remember the borderline thing coming in, yeah.
Did you get a borderline label at any
No,
time?
my sister did.
Okay. And then narcissism generally, just the narcissistic disorders were, that's all we saw.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's a change. And this is something's happening.
Yeah.
And I started looking into it. I wrote a book on it. And I thought,
the book is named?
It's named The Mirror Effect. It's about celebrity narcissism. We actually did some
I
studies
love The Mirror Effect. I love that name. That's exactly what it is.
I took your test, too.
You took the test?
Yeah.
How'd you do?
Did you fail?
No, I'm not.
What was your score? You can tell me?
I can't. This was like 7 years ago, but it was. I was happy at the end of it.
Okay.
Like I was okay.
I'm a narcissist. I had narcissist personality disorder. That's just one of my problems.
I don't think that's a disorder. Again,
that's just one of your personalities that has
that. Yeah.
That would be a little different.
Yeah, that's a little
You
different.
should take the test, though.
I'm not taking any tests.
It's just a narcissistic inventory. It's a way of it's just sort of narcissistic traits inventorying them.
I didn't have.
Yeah.
And in any event,
anyway,
so it's clear to me that we've been through this massive shift, and I think trauma was the underlying issue that was creating a lot of it. God knows on Loveline every night, just trauma.
Yeah,
That's all we heard about. And certainly in the hospital, that's all I saw. And I ran a drug unit for 20 years, and we could handle the most seriously ill people. And I always have said that if you had bad enough addiction, you saw me, you had trauma, for sure, 100%.
So are you like saying you were like the last line of defense they had?
Yes. When everyone else was done, we got them. That's what happened. But in any event, I started obsessing about, this cannot be the only moment in history where this has happened, right? It's got to be other times and other places. And
where people have been this disconnected from reality?
Well, that's what happens as a result of the trauma and the narcissism, I would say.
Right.
So the two things that stood out, that when I was just doing my little surveys, I've got a few other candidates from the historical record now too, but at the time I was writing the book, I thought, well, the only time I can find so much childhood sexual abuse and abandonment and all this, pre-revolutionary France. Okay. The French were just brutal with how they dealt with kids back in 1770, and then I started. Wasn't
that the Dickens novel? I mean, he was writing that in that time.
It's the Brit. Oh, was that's about France?
I think that was the French Revolution.
That whole period was. Right. I've been obsessing. The more we've gotten into our hysteria, the more I'm obsessing about it. And then the other thing I saw, this not as is directly relatable, but the Aztecs. I thought, they had a book called The Codex, which was how to traumatize your kids and turn them into warriors, essentially. Right.
Oh,
so it was adaptive for them. But once you have so severely traumatized kids, they become violent. They will turn that violence on each other unless every day you create a mob that kills somebody up the top of those stairs, and we all get together while we kill that guy and throw his heart down the stairs, and now we've discharged our energy for the day. We can all get along a little bit.
That's what we need to do. Start doing that.
Well, no, we're doing it. We call it
confused.
So because of that kind of scapegoating, I knew scapegoating. I knew guillotines would come. I knew it. cancel culture. That's our current guillotine mechanism.
Yeah.
The thing about guillotines is, though, everybody eventually goes up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's Robespierre ends up on everybody ends up on the guillotine eventually.
Right.
And that we're in that sort of phase now, I think, where everybody's sort of getting.
I find that fascinating.
Into this thing.
What about Salem?
Well, we should be reading Arthur Miller again. That's why he wrote that book.
Yeah, that was during the Red Scare.
That was McCarthyism, and I'm finally hearing people say, "Oh, this is like the Red Scare all over again."
It is,
except this is much bigger, much more pervasive, much more
global,
embedded in our being in terms of the mental health crisis that you're pointing out. It's profound.
I think we probably had maybe we agree, maybe we don't. I think they did it on purpose.
You
think it's just a coincidence?
I think it's a. Well, who's they? Yeah. Maybe we should start with
the owners of the world.
And let me just also say that there are so many things that I would have patted you on the back and, oh, Roseanne, whatever. Now I'm like, okay, I'm listening. it's like a stuff I never entertained before. Now I'm like, well, I just show me the data. I'm up for anything now.
Everyone should be like that. Show me the data.
This whole experience has been so bewildering to me, so freaking bewildering that I'm like, okay, I guess the world is not quite what I thought it was.
It isn't at all.
So I don't feel like people can organize in that kind of way. They're not good enough. Because you
don't think they're good enough to organize in that kind of way?
I don't think people are that. I think they're remarkably centralized these days, and I never imagined that bureaucracies could develop so much power and control. But I think if you talked to every individual member of the bureaucracy, they wouldn't have a collective consciousness with the other bureaucrats.
No, because they're on a need-to-know basis.
Right.
They're all living in the clerk mentality like the Nazis. Okay. It's just, this is this is Berlin, pre
Well, it has some of those features now.
It has all of them. They're talking about kill the Jews, get the Jews. First,
shocking.
They ethnically, this is what makes me mad, to see these young people. They are so brainwashed.
I know.
And just with lies. Lies.
You just had Ami Horowitz in here, didn't you?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see his video on River to the Sea?
Not that one, but I did.
He went in and he asked all the kids, River to Sea, what river, what sea?
Yeah.
Let me show you a map. Yeah. He shows them a map. They're like, oh, it just sounded good. I didn't really want Israel to be destroyed necessarily. And so it's mob. These are mobs.
Yeah,
mobs
it is
are
mob.
dangerous.
Oh, you see